Commander had studied war for 200 years. He had watched armies clash on frozen worlds and burning deserts. He had documented the military tactics of 37 different species. He had written texts that were required reading in every military academy. If anyone in the galaxy understood the nature of conflict, it was him. Or so he believed. Stood on the observation deck of the Quiet Witness, his four-fingered hands clasped behind his back as he watched the planet below. 4 was a border world, unremarkable in most ways. A human colony of 3,000 souls had settled there 5 years ago. They called their little settlement Haven's Rest, had noted the name in his files and thought nothing more of it. The humans were interesting subjects for study. They had joined the galactic community only 80 years ago, a young species still finding their place among the stars, had observed their military operations on several occasions. He found them competent but unexceptional. They fought like most species did. They calculated odds, they weighed risks. They retreated when the numbers turned against them. Sensible, predictable, unremarkable. Lieutenant Kelly stood nearby, reviewing data on a tablet. She was the human liaison officer assigned to his vessel, a woman in her middle 30s with brown hair and calm gray eyes. Had worked with her for 6 months and found her pleasant enough. Quiet, professional. She performed her duties without complaint and never caused problems. He had written in his personal notes that she was a typical example of human military personnel. Nothing special. The distress signal changed everything. It came through at midday ship time, a burst of static and screaming and weapons fire. The colony was under attack. Raiders had descended on Haven's Rest without warning. They were taking prisoners. They were killing anyone who resisted. Knew the well. They were 7 feet tall, covered in thick scales and utterly without mercy. They raided colonies across 3 sectors, taking slaves and leaving corpses. Most species had learned to evacuate at the first sign of ships. Those who could not evacuate simply died. He calculated the situation quickly. 3,000 colonists, perhaps 200 capable of fighting, against what his sensors showed was a force of at least 500 warriors. The mathematics were simple. The colony was lost. Kelly did not seem to agree with his mathematics. She was speaking rapidly into her communicator, her voice sharp and urgent. Listened as she coordinated with a human vessel that had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. The ship was small, a light frigate called the Morning Star. It carried a crew of 60 and a rescue team of 12 soldiers. 12 soldiers against 500. Approached Kelly when she finished her transmission. He kept his voice gentle, as one might speak to a child who did not understand basic arithmetic. Lieutenant, I have great respect for human courage, but you must understand that sending 12 soldiers to face 500 is not a rescue mission. It is suicide. Kelly looked at him. Something in her eyes had changed. The calm gray had turned to cold steel. Felt a strange sensation he did not immediately recognize. It took him a moment to realize it was unease. Commander, there are children in that colony, over 300 children. They take children as slaves. They work them until they die. Her voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, something that made one step back. Those 12 soldiers are going down there. I am going with them. You can observe from orbit or you can come with us, but we are going. Should have refused. Every principle of military strategy told him to remain safely aboard his ship and document what would certainly be a massacre. But he had spent 2 centuries studying war, and he had never seen a human fight to protect their own. His curiosity overcame his caution. I will accompany you, he said. I will bring a small observation team. We will not interfere, but we will record everything. Kelly nodded once. She did not thank him or express pleasure at his decision. She simply turned and walked toward the shuttle bay, gathered 3 of his junior officers and followed. The shuttle ride down to the surface took 20 minutes, spent the time observing the human soldiers. There were 12 of them led by a man named Danny Cole. He was not physically impressive by human standards: average height, lean build, a face that might have belonged to a farmer or a shopkeeper. He spoke softly to his team, reviewing their approach, assigning positions. Everything was professional. Everything was standard. But there was something in the shuttle that could not identify. A tension in the air, a weight that pressed against his scales. The humans sat quietly, checking their weapons, adjusting their gear. None of them spoke unnecessarily. None of them joked or complained or showed any of the nervous energy he had observed in soldiers of other species before battle. They were too calm. That was what disturbed him. They were about to face impossible odds, and they were too calm. Kelly sat beside him. Her rifle rested across her knees, her hands steady on the grip. Studied her profile and tried to understand what he was seeing. "Lieutenant, may I ask you something?" "Yes." "You are a liaison officer. Your role is diplomatic, not combat. Why are you going down there?" Kelly turned to look at him. Her eyes were still that cold steel gray. Realized he had never seen this expression on a human face before. He had seen human anger. He had seen human fear. He had seen human determination. This was none of those things. This was something older, something deeper. "Because those are my people down there," she said, "and no one hurts my people." The shuttle began its descent through the atmosphere. Below them, smoke rose from burning buildings. Could see ships scattered across the landing fields, ugly vessels bristling with weapons. His sensors detected energy signatures consistent with ongoing combat. Some of the colonists were still fighting. Danny Cole stood and addressed his team. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "We go in fast. We hit hard. We do not stop until every civilian is safe or every one of us is dead. No walks away from this. Not one. Understood?" 12 voices answered as one. Understood. Felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard battle cries before. He had heard war chants and oaths of vengeance, but this was different. There was no rage in their voices, no fire. There was only certainty, cold, absolute certainty. The shuttle touched down 2 kilometers from the colony. The humans moved out in perfect formation, silent as shadows. Followed with his observation team, recording everything. He glanced at Kelly as they moved through the tall grass toward the burning settlement. The quiet liaison officer was gone. In her place was something else entirely. Something that moved like a predator. Something that looked at the smoke rising from Haven's Rest with eyes that promised death. Had studied war for 200 years. He had believed he understood it completely. He was about to learn how wrong he was. They encountered the first patrol 15 minutes into their approach. 8 raiders moving through a burned field, their weapons still hot from recent kills. Counted them quickly and felt his stomach tighten. 8 against 12 humans was not favorable odds. They were larger, stronger, and armored in natural scales that could deflect most small arms fire. Standard military doctrine for every species had studied was clear. When outnumbered against a superior force, you waited for reinforcements. You fell back to defensible positions. You did not engage unless absolutely necessary. The humans did not wait. Danny Cole raised his hand and made 3 quick gestures. The team split instantly, moving like water around stones. Before could process what was happening, the humans attacked. Not carefully, not cautiously. They simply attacked. The sound of gunfire shattered the morning air. Watched in shock as the humans closed distance with the yet terrifying speed. They did not take cover. They did not fire from safe positions. They ran directly at the enemy, weapons blazing. They were caught completely off guard. They were raiders, accustomed to fighting terrified colonists and fleeing refugees. They had never faced anything like this. 2 of them fell in the first 3 seconds, their thick scales no match for concentrated fire at close range. Danny Cole reached the nearest and did something had never seen in 200 years of military observation. They swung a massive blade at him, a blow that would have cut most beings in half. Cole did not dodge. He stepped into the swing, taking the blade through his left shoulder, and used the moment of contact to press his rifle against the throat. He fired twice. The raider fell. Cole did not stop. He did not cry out in pain. He did not look at the blade embedded in his shoulder. He simply turned and engaged the next enemy. His recording equipment captured everything. His mind struggled to process it. This was not warfare. This was something else entirely, something that every principle he had ever learned. A young woman named Maya Santos was fighting two at once. She was small by human standards, barely reaching the raiders' chests. But she moved between them like a ghost, her rifle cracking again and again. When one of them grabbed her arm and threw her to the ground, she rolled with the impact, drew a knife from her belt, and drove it into the eye before he could finish her. The whole engagement lasted 4 minutes. 4 minutes from first shot to last body falling. 8 lay dead in the burned field. The humans stood among them, breathing hard, already checking each other for wounds. Danny Cole finally allowed a medic to look at his shoulder. The blade had gone through muscle and bone. The medic said something about nerve damage and immediate evacuation. Cole shook his head. "Patch it up, we keep moving." "Sergeant, you could lose the arm if we do not treat this properly." "Then I lose the arm, patch it up." Approached Kelly, who was reloading her rifle with steady hands. Her face was spattered with blood. She did not seem to notice. "Lieutenant, what I just witnessed goes against every tactical principle in my files. You should have waited. You should have called for support. You should not have engaged a superior force in close quarters." Kelly looked at him. That cold steel was still in her eyes. "Every minute we wait, children die. We do not wait." "But the risk, the casualties you could have suffered." "Commander, let me explain something to you." Kelly's voice was patient, as if she were teaching a slow student. "There are 300 children in that colony. Right now they are sorting them, deciding which ones are strong enough for slavery, killing the weak ones, killing the sick ones, killing the ones who cry too much." She paused. "So no, we do not wait. We do not calculate acceptable losses. We go in and we kill every single between us and those children. That is not a tactic. That is not a strategy. That is simply what we do." Had no response. He watched as the humans formed up again and continued toward the colony. Danny Cole moved at the front, his left arm hanging useless at his side, his rifle held in his right hand. He did not slow down. None of them slowed down. They encountered 2 more patrols before reaching the colony perimeter. Each time the result was the same. The humans attacked without hesitation, without calculation, without any consideration for their own survival. They lost 1 soldier in the second engagement, a man named Chris Park, who took a blade to the throat while protecting Maya Santos from a flanking attack. The humans did not stop to mourn. They closed his eyes, took his ammunition, and kept moving. Tried to understand what he was seeing. He had files on human psychology. He knew about their capacity for loyalty and sacrifice. But this went beyond anything in his research. These humans were not fighting to win. They were not fighting to survive. They were fighting as if their own lives had no value at all compared to the lives they were trying to save. It was terrifying. They reached a ridge overlooking the colony as the sun began to set, looked down at Haven's Rest and felt his heart sink. They had gathered the surviving colonists in the central square, perhaps 800 people surrounded by armed raiders. Among them he could see children, hundreds of children huddled together, crying, terrified. They numbered at least 400. They had defensive positions, heavy weapons, and hostages. By every measure knew the situation was hopeless. 12 humans against 400 was not a battle. It was mathematics. And mathematics said the humans should retreat, regroup, and return with overwhelming force. Danny Cole stood on the ridge studying the scene below. His face was pale from blood loss. His wounded arm had been bandaged but was clearly useless. He should have been in a medical bay. He should have been anywhere but here. "Sergeant Cole said, I must advise you that any assault on this position will result in the death of your entire team. The odds are simply too great. You must wait for reinforcements." Cole turned to look at him. For the first time saw emotion in the human's eyes, but it was not fear, it was not doubt, it was something much worse. It was absolute, unwavering certainty. "Commander, do you see those children down there?" "Yes." "In about 10 minutes, they are going to start loading them onto transport ships. They will be taken to mining colonies where they will work until they die. Most of them will not survive the first year." Cole's voice was quiet, almost gentle. "I am going to walk down there and kill every who stands between me and those children. My team is going to do the same. We will either save them or we will die trying. Those are the only two options." He turned to his team and spoke into his communicator. His voice was calm, almost peaceful. "No prisoners." 11 voices responded as one. 11 humans preparing to face 400. 11 people who had already accepted that they might die in the next hour. Watched them move down the ridge toward the colony. He thought about his 200 years of studying war. He thought about all the battles he had observed, all the tactics he had documented, all the principles he had taught. None of it had prepared him for this. He followed the humans toward the colony, his recording equipment capturing every moment. Whatever happened next, the galaxy needed to see it. The galaxy needed to understand what humans were capable of when their children were threatened. He was about to learn a lesson that would change him forever. The attack began at sunset. Danny Cole split his remaining 11 soldiers into 3 groups. 4 would hit the eastern barricade. 4 would strike from the west. 3, including Cole himself, would go straight through the front. It was not a complicated plan. It did not need to be. The humans were not trying to outmaneuver they were simply trying to kill them. Positioned himself on a low rooftop where he could observe the entire square. His recording equipment captured everything in perfect detail. His junior officers crouched beside him, their scales pale with fear. They had never seen anything like what was about to happen. Neither had he. The first shots came from the east. The humans there did not wait for a signal. They simply began killing. The turn toward the sound, weapons raised, and that was when the western group struck. Crossfire tore through the raiders' ranks. Fell screaming, their thick scales useless against concentrated fire from 2 directions. Then Danny Cole walked through the front entrance. Walked, not ran, not charged. He walked into the square with his rifle in his right hand, his left arm hanging dead at his side, and he began shooting with the calm efficiency of a farmer harvesting grain. Each shot found its mark. Each movement was precise and economical. He did not waste ammunition. He did not waste motion. He simply killed. The commander was a massive creature named, nearly 8 feet tall and covered in battle scars. He had raided 100 worlds. He had broken a dozen species. He looked at Danny Cole walking toward him and felt something he had not experienced in 50 years of warfare. He felt fear. The battle devolved into chaos. Centuries of military education told him that the humans should have been overwhelmed within minutes. They were outnumbered nearly 40 to 1. They were fighting on unfamiliar ground against enemies who knew every corner of the colony. The mathematics were absolute. The humans should have died quickly. The mathematics were wrong. Maya Santos ran out of ammunition somewhere in the middle of the square. Watched her throw her empty rifle at a charging, draw her knife, and keep fighting. She was bleeding from cuts on her face, her arms, her legs. A blade had torn through her side, and he could see the wound soaking her uniform with blood. She did not stop. She did not slow down. She simply kept killing. Grabbed her from behind, lifting her off the ground. She twisted in his grip, drove her knife into his eye, and fell to the ground as he collapsed. Before she could rise, another raider was on her. She rolled beneath his swing, came up behind him, and cut his throat with a single motion. Kelly fought near the center of the square, protecting a group of children who had broken free from the main group of hostages. She stood over them like a guardian spirit, her rifle never stopping, her aim never faltering. When it got close enough to swing at her, she stepped inside his reach, pressed her rifle against his chest, and fired until he fell. Tried to analyze what he was seeing. He tried to apply his knowledge, his experience, his 200 years of military study. He failed. This was not warfare as he understood it. The humans were not fighting like soldiers. They were fighting like forces of nature, like storms, like earthquakes, like the kind of catastrophe that cannot be reasoned with or predicted or survived. The began to break. Had seen military retreats before. He had documented the psychology of defeated armies, the moment when courage fails and survival instinct takes over. But he had never seen it happen so quickly. They were warriors. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They did not run from battles. They ran from this one. It started at the edges, where the raiders farthest from the fighting began slipping away into the darkness. Then it spread to the center, where even veterans who had faced death 100 times looked at the humans and decided that living was more important than pride. Within 15 minutes of the first shot, they were fleeing in all directions. But the humans did not let them flee. Danny Cole's voice came through every human communicator. No one leaves. No one escapes. They came here to take our children. Not one of them walks away. The humans spread out through the colony hunting. Watched them move through the streets with cold efficiency, finding every hidden raider, every fleeing warrior. The sounds of gunfire echoed through the night. Sometimes there were screams. Sometimes there was silence. But the outcome was always the same. Commander made his last stand near the colony's landing pad. He had gathered perhaps 50 of his remaining warriors around him, the last of his raiding force. They formed a defensive circle, weapons ready, prepared to sell their lives dearly. Danny Cole walked toward them alone. Human called out, "You have one. Let us leave and we will not return. There is no need for more death." Cole kept walking. He did not respond. He did not negotiate. He simply walked toward 50 armed as if they were nothing at all. "You are one man," said. "We are 50. You cannot kill us all." Cole stopped. He was perhaps 20 meters from the line. His face was pale from blood loss. His wounded arm hung useless. He looked like a man who should have been dead hours ago. "Let me tell you something about humans," he said. His voice was quiet, almost conversational. "We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. Predators, diseases, starvation, other humans. Everything on our planet wanted us dead, and we survived anyway. We survived because when something threatens what we love, we do not calculate odds. We do not consider retreat. We simply destroy the threat no matter the cost." He raised his rifle with his one good arm. "Your people came to my world. You threatened my people. You tried to take our children." His voice was still quiet, still calm. "I am going to kill every single one of you, and when I am done, I am going to find your home world, and I am going to make sure that no ever threatens a human child again." The remaining humans appeared from the darkness surrounding the Kelly Maya Santos, 9 others who had survived the battle, wounded, bleeding, exhausted, but still standing, still ready to fight. Looked at them. He looked at Danny Cole. He looked at the bodies of his warriors scattered across the colony. For the first time in 50 years, Commander understood what it meant to be prey. The final battle lasted less than 5 minutes. When it was over, not a single remained alive in Haven's Rest. Descended from his rooftop, his legs unsteady. His recording equipment had captured everything. The galaxy would see what he had seen. They would watch 12 humans face 400 and win. They would watch a species transform from competent soldiers into something ancient and terrible. He found Danny Cole sitting against a wall, finally allowing the medic to treat his wounds. The sergeant had been shot twice during the final battle, adding to his earlier injuries. By any reasonable measure, he should have been dead. He was not. Sergeant Cole said, "What I witnessed tonight, I have no words for it." Cole looked up at him. The cold certainty was fading from his eyes, replaced by exhaustion and pain. "We did what we had to do, Commander. Nothing more. You faced impossible odds. You should have died. All of you should have died." Cole smiled. It was a tired smile without humor. "Commander, you still do not understand. The odds were never against us. They were against them." He gestured at the bodies scattered across the square. "They made a mistake. They threatened our children. After that, their deaths were inevitable. The only question was how many of us would fall along the way." Stood in the square, surrounded by the dead, and tried to understand what he had learned. He had studied war for 200 years. He had believed he knew everything about conflict, about violence, about the nature of battle. He had been wrong. He had never truly understood war until he saw humans fight to protect their own. The morning after the battle was quiet. Smoke still rose from burned buildings, but the gunfire had stopped. The screaming had stopped. The only sounds were the crying of children and the soft voices of humans trying to comfort them. Walked through the colony, recording everything. The bodies of raiders lay where they had fallen, already being collected and counted by human personnel who had arrived on the Morning Star overnight. The final count was 437 dead raiders. Not a single had escaped Haven's Rest alive. The human casualties were harder to count. 4 of the original 12 soldiers had died during the battle: Chris Park, Jenny Williams, Sam Torres, Reed. Their bodies had been carefully recovered and placed in a quiet room at the colony's medical center. The remaining 8 soldiers were all wounded, some critically. Danny Cole had lost consciousness shortly after the battle ended and was now in surgery to save his arm. But it was not the dead that captured his attention. It was the living. Maya Santos sat on the steps of a burned house, her wounds bandaged, her uniform still stained with blood. A young girl, perhaps 6 years old, sat beside her. The girl had not spoken since they had taken her from her parents. She simply stared at nothing, her eyes empty. Maya did not try to make her speak. She simply sat with her, humming a soft tune that did not recognize. Her hands, the same hands that had killed 16 the night before, now gently stroked the girl's hair. After perhaps an hour, the girl leaned against Maya's shoulder and closed her eyes. It was the same everywhere looked. The humans who had fought like demons the night before were now moving through the colony with infinite gentleness. They carried water to the wounded. They helped search for survivors in collapsed buildings. They held crying children and spoke softly to traumatized parents. Kelly was helping to organize the rescued colonists, making lists of the living and the dead, ensuring that families were reunited. Her face was calm, professional, almost exactly as it had been 6 months ago when first met her. The cold steel in her eyes was gone, replaced by quiet compassion. Approached her. "Lieutenant, I do not understand." "What do you not understand, Commander?" "Last night your people were, I do not have words for what they were. They were terrifying. They were unstoppable. They killed with no mercy and no hesitation." He paused. "Today they are gentle. They are kind. They comfort children and help the wounded. How can they be both things? How can the same beings who did what I saw last night now do what I see this morning?" Kelly considered the question for a moment. "Commander, what do you think war is?" "War is conflict between organized groups. It is strategy and tactics and logistics. It is the calculation of acceptable losses and strategic objectives." "That is your definition. It is not ours." Kelly looked across the square where Maya Santos was now carrying the sleeping girl toward the medical center. "For humans, war is what happens when someone threatens what we love, our families, our children, our homes, our people. When those things are threatened, we do not calculate, we do not strategize, we simply protect." "But the violence, the fury, how do you turn it off?" Kelly smiled slightly. "We do not turn it off, Commander. We simply redirect it. The fury and the love come from the same place. They are not opposites. They are the same thing, expressed in different ways." She gestured at the soldiers moving through the colony. These men and women fought last night because they love their people. They helped this morning because they love their people. It is not a switch. It is not a change. It is simply what we are. A commotion near the edge of the square drew their attention. Several colonists were shouting, their voices angry, and Kelly moved toward the disturbance. A young was on his knees in the dirt, his hands raised in surrender. He was barely adult by standards, his scales still soft, his eyes wide with terror. Several colonists surrounded him, their faces twisted with rage. He was hiding in a storage building, one of the colonists said. He is one of them. He should die like the rest of them. The young spoke rapidly in broken common. Please. I did not hurt anyone. I was frightened. I hid. Please do not kill me. Danny Cole appeared at the edge of the crowd. He had left surgery early, against medical advice. His left arm was immobilized in a complex brace, and his face was gray with pain and exhaustion. But he was walking and his eyes were clear. What is happening here? His voice was quiet, but everyone heard it. We found a survivor, the colonist said. He should be executed. Cole walked slowly toward the young. He stood over the terrified raider for a long moment, studying him. The colonists watched, waiting. Watched too, certain that he was about to witness another execution. What is your name? Cole asked. The young blinked in confusion. My name is. Did you hurt any of the colonists? Did you participate in the killing? No, I swear it. I was assigned to guard the ships. When the fighting started, I ran, I hid, I was afraid. Tears streamed down the young's face. I did not want to come here. I did not want any of this, but I had no choice. My commander ordered it. Cole studied him for another long moment. Then he did something that shocked everyone present, including. He offered the young his hand. Stared at the offered hand as if it might bite him. Slowly, trembling, he took it. Cole helped him to his feet. You were afraid, Cole said. You hid instead of fighting. You did not hurt anyone. He paused. I am not going to kill you. The colonists erupted in protest. Shouts of anger filled the square. Someone called Cole a traitor. Someone demanded justice for the dead. Cole raised his voice slightly and the crowd fell silent. Justice is not the same as vengeance. This one is barely more than a child. He did not hurt our people. Killing him will not bring back anyone we lost. He looked at. I am going to let you live. I am going to put you on a ship and send you back to your people. And I want you to tell them something. Anything, whispered. Tell them what happened here. Tell them what we did to the warriors who threatened our children. Tell them that if any ever comes near a human colony again, we will not stop at one world. We will find every settlement, every ship, every soldier, and we will not stop until your species is a memory. Cole's voice was still quiet, still calm. Tell them that humans do not start wars, but we finish them. Nodded frantically, his whole body shaking. Watched them take the young away. He watched Danny Cole turn and walk slowly toward the medical center, his remaining strength clearly failing. He watched the colonists disperse, their anger fatting into something more complex. Kelly stood beside him. Do you understand now, Commander? I am beginning to, said. The fury and the mercy, they are the same thing. Yes, we are capable of terrible violence when our people are threatened, but we are also capable of forgiveness when the threat has passed. Both come from the same place. Both come from love. Looked at the colony around him. Humans helping each other. Humans comforting children. Humans rebuilding what had been destroyed. The same species that had torn through 400 warriors like a storm through paper. He had studied war for 200 years. He had believed he understood violence and conflict and the nature of battle. He was only now beginning to understand what it meant to be human. 1 week after the battle, sat alone in his private study aboard the Quiet Witness. The ship orbited slowly above 4, where the colony of Haven's Rest was already beginning to rebuild. Human ships had arrived from a dozen worlds, bringing supplies and volunteers and construction equipment. The burned buildings were being torn down. New structures were rising in their place. Had spent the week reviewing his recordings. He had watched the battle footage hundreds of times, analyzing every moment, every decision, every act of violence and mercy. He had compared what he had witnessed to his centuries of military documentation. He had cross-referenced human behavior patterns with every other species in his files. His conclusions troubled him deeply. He opened a new entry in the military archives. For 200 years, his entries had been calm and analytical, dispassionate observations of alien warfare, careful documentation of tactics and strategies and outcomes. This entry would be different. He began to speak, his voice recorded for posterity. I have studied war for 200 years. I have observed 37 species in conflict. I have documented military campaigns across hundreds of worlds. I believed I understood the nature of warfare completely. I believed I could predict and analyze any military encounter using the principles I had developed over 2 centuries of study. I was wrong. He paused, collecting his thoughts. 1 week ago, I observed a force of 12 human soldiers engage and defeat a raiding party of over 400 warriors. By every measure of military science, this should have been impossible. The humans were outnumbered nearly 40 to 1. They faced an enemy with superior defensive positions, heavy weapons, and hostages. The mathematics predicted their complete annihilation within minutes of engagement. The mathematics were irrelevant. Stood and walked to his observation window. Below, he could see the lights of Haven's Rest, growing brighter each day as the colony recovered. I have spent this week attempting to understand what I witnessed. I have analyzed the human soldiers' tactics, their weapons, their training. None of these factors explain their victory. The humans used standard military equipment. Their tactics were aggressive but not innovative. Their training was thorough but not exceptional. What made them unstoppable was something that cannot be measured, or something that I had overlooked in all my previous studies of human military capability. He returned to his desk and called up an image on his display. It was a still from his recordings, captured during the final assault on the colony square. Maya Santos, wounded in a dozen places, standing over a group of children with her empty rifle raised like a club. Her face was twisted with fury. Her eyes burned with something ancient and terrible. I had documented human loyalty. I had noted their capacity for sacrifice, but I had failed to understand the depth of these traits. When humans form attachments, they form them completely. Their family, their friends, their community. These connections are not strategic alliances or practical arrangements. They are bonds that override every other consideration, including self-preservation. The threatened human children. In that moment, they ceased to be a military opponent and became something that needed to be destroyed. The humans did not weigh costs and benefits. They did not calculate acceptable losses. They simply attacked with everything they had, holding nothing back, accepting any consequence. Another image appeared on his display. Danny Cole, pale from blood loss, walking toward 50 armed with his rifle in his one good hand. His face was calm. His eyes were empty of fear. I watched Sergeant Danny Cole, wounded in 7 places, walk toward 50 armed enemies as if they were nothing at all. I watched him do this not out of confidence in his victory, but out of complete indifference to his own survival. The lives of the children in that colony mattered more to him than his own life. This was not a tactical calculation. It was simply the truth of who he was. Paused the recording and sat in silence for a long moment. He had spent 2 centuries believing that war could be understood through logic and analysis. He had been a fool. But the most surprising discovery came after the battle. The same humans who had fought with such terrifying fury became gentle caregivers within hours of the final shot. They comforted traumatized children. They treated wounded colonists. They showed mercy to a surrendered enemy. I asked Lieutenant Kelly how this was possible. how the same beings could be both merciless killers and compassionate healers. She told me that the fury and the mercy came from the same place. Both were expressions of love. When humans love something, they will destroy anything that threatens it. When the threat is gone, that same love turns toward healing and protection. It is not a switch. It is not a transformation. It is simply what they are. He called up one final image. The young being helped to his feet by Danny Cole, the man who had killed hundreds of the night before, showing mercy to a frightened enemy soldier. I watched Sergeant Cole spare a young who had not participated in the atrocities. He did not do this out of weakness or sentimentality. He did it because the young raider was not a threat to his people. Human violence is not random or indiscriminate. It is precise. It is directed at specific targets for specific reasons. When those reasons no longer apply, the violence stops. Stood again and faced the recording device directly. I am adding a new section to my analysis of human military capability. I am classifying humans as a Class 1 existential threat to any species that might consider them enemies, not because of their weapons or their numbers or their technology. These factors are unremarkable. Humans are dangerous because of what they are willing to do for each other. Any species that threatens human civilians, especially human children, should understand what they are inviting. Humans will not negotiate. They will not retreat. They will not accept losses and withdraw to fight another day. They will simply keep coming until the threat is eliminated, no matter how many of them die in the process. My final recommendation to any species reading this archive is simple. Do not provoke humans. Do not threaten what they love. Do not give them a reason to turn their protective fury against you. Because once you do, mathematics will not save you. Strategy will not save you. Numbers will not save you. Nothing will save you. Ended the recording and saved it to the archives. He walked back to the observation window and looked down at Haven's Rest one final time. A shuttle was departing from the colony surface. Inside were Danny Cole and his surviving team, finally returning home after a week of recovery. 8 soldiers out of the original 12. 4 had died to save 3,000 colonists. The humans considered this a victory. Kelly had transferred back to her normal duties as a liaison officer. She had said goodbye to that morning, shaking his hand with her usual quiet professionalism. He would never look at her the same way again. He would never look at any human the same way again. His communicator chimed. A message from the High Command, requesting his preliminary report on human military capabilities. They wanted to know if humans represented a threat to interests. Thought about the question for a long moment. Then he began his response. Humans do not represent a threat to any species that treats them with respect and kindness. They are not conquerors. They are not aggressors. They want only to live in peace with their neighbors. However, I must strongly advise against any action that might be perceived as threatening to human populations. The consequences would be severe. He paused, remembering Maya Santos standing over those children, remembering Danny Cole walking toward 50 armed without fear, remembering the cold steel in Kelly's eyes. There is an old human saying that Lieutenant shared with me. Heaven has no rage like love turned to hatred. I did not understand it at first. I understand it now. Humans are not the most technologically advanced species. They are not the most numerous. They are not the strongest or the fastest or the most intelligent, but they may be the most dangerous species in the galaxy for one simple reason. They love each other, and they will destroy anything that threatens what they love. He signed the report and sent it to High Command. Then he returned to the window and watched the human shuttle disappear into the darkness between stars. Had studied war for 200 years. He had believed he understood it completely. He had been wrong. He had never truly known war until he saw the fury of a human. And he hoped with all 4 of his hearts that he would never have to see it again.